Welcome to the Your Courageous Life podcast, where we explore what it really means to transform fear, burnout, and perfectionism with the practice of courage. I'm Kate, author of the books 100% Fully Alive and The Courage Habit, creator of YourCourageousLife.com, and head of the CLCC Coach Training Program at TeamCLCC.com. If you're someone who feels deeply, thinks critically, and wants to stay grounded in a world that can feel like too much, then this is the podcast for you. Learn evidence-based and heart-centered tools to practice courage so that who you are on the inside becomes how you live, lead, and show up on the outside. And now, let's get into today's episode. All right, today we're going to talk about a feeling that is so very real, and it's also kind of hard to talk about. And that feeling is, what do you do when you feel really jealous? What do you do with it? As in, how do you turn that around? How do you not get stuck in it? Jealousy is one of those emotions that pretty much is hard to admit for most people. You see someone else winning, they're doing things with their career that you want to do. Maybe you were laid off and your friend was laid off and you're having a really hard time finding a job, and then your friend gets a job easily, whereas you've been submitting applications for months. Maybe it's a relationship thing. Maybe somebody else has the relationship that you want or the money that you want. And the thing is, deep down, you know that the best thing to do is to be happy for them. And maybe you even have been talking yourself through the experience and you're going, you know what? Good for them. Good for them. I love and I support my friend. I want to have good feelings about this. I want to treat them the way I would want to be treated if everything was going really well for me. And if you're really honest, somewhere deep down, there's a little ache that's going, but why not me? That ache is jealousy. And I want to normalize it real quick. It's very human. And in fact, the jealousy itself is not a problem. The problem is not that you feel jealous. Where jealousy becomes a problem is what we do with it. So let's start with a couple of truths. Jealousy is not some kind of evidence or proof that you're a petty person or a small person. What jealousy actually points to is that you care. There's something that you want. You're not checked out from life. There is actually something that you yourself wish you could have. Jealousy points to desire. It points to where desire has been hiding. It's your system saying, hey, this thing matters to you. Pay attention. But most of us don't treat our own jealousy that way. We treat it like shame. And when people are ashamed of things, it's pretty common that the first go-to is to deny it. So you talk yourself out of it and you say, no, I'm not jealous. Or you marinate in it and you go to pessimism and you go to, I'll just never have that. Comparisons, telling yourself how you're less than. And neither of those options help. So what do we do to handle jealousy in a way that's brave, in a way that's actually courageous? Well, to me, it's use it as a mirror. Here's how I think about it. And these are some of the questions that I ask myself when I feel jealous. And yes, it does come up. First things first, what is this showing me that I in fact want? Strip away the comparison, the sense of they're better than, or they get it and I don't, anything like that. Just like put that to the side and ask yourself, well, what's the underlying longing that I have? Maybe it's freedom. Maybe it's recognition. Like as a for instance, I remember feeling jealous when I, in the past, have seen people who years after I start talking about things like don't hate your fear is not the enemy, somebody else posts a blog post about that. And suddenly like everybody's commenting on it like, wow, this is new. I never thought about it that way before. And I've had these feelings of like, well, I've been thinking about it that way for a really long time. And so where's all the recognition when I've thought about it that way? And yeah, it's a little embarrassing to admit to, but I've felt that way before. But what is that showing me that I want in that moment? It's showing me that I want recognition. So what is the underlying longing? Maybe you want love. You want to feel like you have connection. You want peace. You want to be included. Whatever it is, jealousy actually points to it. So the first question is, what is this showing me that I want? Second question, what story am I telling myself about why I can't have it? Basically, going into a space of, well, why not me? Because really that's where the work begins. This story, or I often call stories internalized narratives or capital S stories, the story that you have about why you can't have it is actually the part that's really hard. Because think about it. If your friend is having pizza for dinner and you feel a little jealous, you're like, oh gosh, I want some pizza for dinner. Like you got the best pizza. I want some of that for myself. If you know that there's a pizza place right down the street where you can get some pizza, you're just going to go get the pizza. But if you have some kind of story about how you can't have the pizza, that's when it gets harder. Now, pizza's kind of a dumb example because I can imagine somebody going, oh, come on, pizza? Really, Kate? I'm not worried about pizza. The point that I'm making with this kind of reductive example is that if you feel like something is within your capacity or capability to have for yourself, you don't feel jealous. You just go, oh yeah, I need to go to the store and get that thing for myself too. The jealousy comes in if somebody's buying the luxury item at the store that you don't think you have the money to have or any way to attain. The story, not the desire for the thing or the experience or the love or the connection, the story about why you can't have it is actually what hurts. So what is the story you're telling yourself about why you can't have it? Why not you? And really recognizing that that is an internalized narrative. It's not the truth. It's just a story you tell yourself. And you can change the story you tell yourself. And then the next question is, what's one small action I can take to create this for myself today? And this is not about copying someone else's life, okay? It's to live more truthfully in your own. So if I go back to that example of how, years ago I remember, seeing blog posts and things like that where people were talking about stop hating your fear is not the enemy. And they would get all these likes and people going, this is amazing and all that. And this is new for me. And I'm sitting here going, I've been pounding the pavement with this message all across the interwebs for so long. And I felt some jealousy at the recognition that they were getting. Well, what's a story I tell myself about why I can't have it? Well, once I really look at it, it's kind of like, no, I can actually speak to this more. I can keep the focus on my own sheet of paper instead of comparing myself to someone else. I can also put my focus on the fact that what's actually most important to me, my highest value, is that people find personal freedom and liberation from the things that cause them to suffer, the fear that holds them back. And at the end of the day, it's more important to me that someone gets that message than the fact that I would be the messenger. So when I root into that, I feel better. When I get out of the story that I should have had the recognition, then I feel better. What's one small action I can take? Well, let me go ahead and, hey, if it's a hot topic and people are finally embracing this idea, let's add to the conversation. Here's something else that we can talk about related to this idea of not using your fear as the enemy. Great. So again, it's not to copy someone else's life. It's about living more truthfully in your own life. And that's how you start to turn jealousy from poison into fuel. Now, real talk. None of anything that I've been going over today does anything for you whatsoever if you don't practice it. Practice is where things change. You have to make a conscious choice to recognize the fact that you've been jealous of your best friend who just got into the best relationship ever while you're feeling like you keep dating duds and doozers and losers. You got to be really real about that. You have to be really real about the fact that you're doing coaching training with somebody else and they seem to be getting paying clients already and you're having trouble finding a client. You have to be really real about the fact that you feel jealous and own it. And then you got to start applying these questions when it comes up. Too often what we do is we go, oh, yeah, I'm feeling jealous again. And then we just don't really do anything with it. And then it just festers and it becomes worse. We forget sometimes that we are the ones in the driver's seats of our own lives. And if you don't want to keep feeling so jealous, you can ask yourself questions and you can use tools to stop feeling that way. And that's going to help you to feel a lot better. You know, I was working with a client once who was talking about, and this is a story that they've given me permission to share, by the way. It always drives me nuts when I see coaches online who are talking about things in client sessions and they don't disclose that a client said it was okay to talk about this. And then it's kind of like, ethically, are we on solid ground here? Because I'm hearing about someone's life and it's their personal life, and maybe you're not naming their name, but you know. So ethically, I want to make sure I share that this person said it's okay to talk about this. But I was working with someone and they felt really jealous of a friend who just seemed effortlessly creative, just these constant ideas flowing nonstop, and they were looking at their own blank page, going, when am I going to feel so inspired? I can't create that much. And we were working together, and when they got curious about that jealousy, one of the things they realized was that to them, watching that creative flow felt like a sort of aliveness. What they wanted to feel was the aliveness of creation. And in fact, they had been very consciously focusing on output, like the number of things that they would create. And in fact, what they needed to do is stop getting out of this output and numerical quantification of how many outputs, how many chapters written, or how many artistic pieces created. They needed to get back into their own aliveness. They needed to do things that made them feel alive and tend to that. And when they started to get into that, they stopped comparing and started focusing on creating. The creation is the important piece. So I really want to support you around not just sitting with this emotion or thinking you have to wait until jealousy passes. Jealousy is kind of like a flare going up into the sky. It lights up these places where you stop believing in your own possibility, in your own capacity. So instead of asking, well, why do they have that? Try asking, what part of me wants to come alive again? What part of me has an unfulfilled need? And those three questions, what is this showing me that I actually want? What story am I telling myself about why I can't have it? What's one small action that I could take towards my own desires, towards the own fulfillment of my own needs, starting today? And those questions will really turn envy into clarity. You'll feel so much more empowered. So again, you're not waiting for the jealousy to just pass, and you can't shame yourself out of jealousy. You can only transform it by honoring what it's pointing to. So the next time jealousy is showing up, don't push it away. Don't hope that it's just going to go away on its own. Pause, listen, ask yourself some questions, and recognize that the jealousy is just showing up so that you can see something about your desire, your capacity, your wanting full aliveness and creation of a courageous life. And the truth is that the more you practice listening to those desires, the less you'll need to compare, the less you'll need to look at what's going on somebody else's piece of paper, and just keep the focus on your own piece of paper. And that's how your life starts feeling like your own again, and you're empowered to make the changes that you really want to make. Thanks for listening to the podcast. Before you go, would you take just one moment to give a rating in whatever podcast app you're listening in right now? It's a tiny action that helps to get this podcast out to more people. And I've got more for you. You can get access to free resources, audios, worksheets, and more for practicing courage in your everyday life. Head over to yourcourageouslife.com and become a subscriber, and you'll get access to an entire library of free courageous resources. And if you've ever thought about becoming a coach, or if you want to bring deeper presence and purpose to your work life so that corporate job doesn't feel quite so soul-sucking, check out the CLCC Coach Training Program at teamclcc.com. Thank you again for listening, and I hope that whatever today brings, you meet it with courage.